One VR dev studio in particular got in touch with me quite early before their game launches next month to get some hands-on time with it, and that dev was Tiny Build, and the game is not for broadcast VR for PSVR2 that launches on December 14th. Now, I've had about an hour and a half of hands-on time with this game, which is nowhere near the game's full 8 to 10 hours of runtime that it will give you, but it's enough for me to get to grips with some of the systems that it presents to you, have a play around with it, see how it feels, how it plays, how it looks, and to get my overall first impressions of the game out for you guys. Not for broadcast contains scenes that some players may find distressing. Discretion is advised. Lovely. Great.
These plugs control everything in the studio.
So I can really mess it up. I originally had planned to do this video a bit further in the future because I thought December was going to be a bit more freed up in terms of space for PSVR2 games, but no, Capcom have decided to throw Resi 4 VR into the mix next week. Vertigo 2 drops, FNAF Help Wanted 2 drops, and Arizona Sunshine 2 drops, so we've got a very hectic time. However, Not For Broadcast is a game that hopefully won't get lost in the mix there, because it genuinely is great fun if you're a specific type of person. This game isn't going to appeal to everybody, but it does appeal to me. For a bit of background, I am a film student, and although I haven't really worked in TV, Not For Broadcast revolves around broadcasting in the TV industry. You're given the controls of which feed to cut to in terms of camera angles as you're hosting the daily news show that goes on every single night. You get to choose what ads are played, what images people see, which camera angles you want people to see as well, and you're ultimately the person who decides what messages go out to the wider public. Now, that gameplay loop of doing a broadcast every single night out to the viewing public is a great premise on its own, and it delivers on that premise first and foremost. I felt incredibly stressed, as a broadcast person probably would, as I'm deciding which camera feeds to cut to, as I'm timing the ad breaks to not lose viewers, because yes, you can lose viewers if you cut camera angles too quickly or too harshly, and modulating audio levels and getting rid of interference, not to mention censoring when people swear. There's a lot to handle, and it's a very big game of multitasking as you progress through each day, trying to handle which images and audio the people in the public see. This is stressful, I'm not even doing anything. Okay. I love how I've got like the different screens going on, so I could really mess this up.
1 minute back, everybody. Jeremy.
I did it, didn't
I
I?
need you to fill after the ads.
What? Why?
Okay, no, we did it. Okay, cool. Oh, I thought I did it wrong. But that's not all there is to it. But before we jump into the actual undertones of this game and what it really reminds me of in terms of its content and themes, let's talk about the technical boring stuff first. As I said earlier, Not For Broadcast runs from 8 to 10 hours of gameplay and doesn't just involve you sitting in the broadcast booth deciding on which images to show. It also involves you making choices back in your home. A story is presented to you in kind of a text-based adventure with some images accompanying it. You have to make choices in your life and how you have to handle things in your personal family home, how to manage relationships with people around you, and how to avoid getting dobbed in by the government, essentially. The earliest example of this is having to decide whether or not to give your passport to somebody that you know to help them get out of the country because they're not happy with the current government. So your gameplay loops are very different, and the game keeps it varied throughout all of it. You're not stuck in that booth all the time, although it does take up most of the time that you're in the game. At least from the first hour and a half or so that I've played. In terms of visuals, the game looks very sharp. In my opinion, Tiny Build have always done a great job of bringing clarity to their PSVR2 games that they put out. Kill It With Fire was basically the same deal. It looked very sharp, even though graphically it wasn't the best in terms of the quality of the textures because it was a very poly-based game. This game, however, has a very unique art style to it, but I do think it looks pretty great, save for the view outside the window that you're given in your broadcasting office, which I think doesn't look great, but the rest of it really does, and the aesthetic of the game really helps fill in that void that might be missing in terms of actual texture resolution or quality. Now, moving on from that, I did mention that there's more to the game rather than just pressing the buttons and making sure that people see the right camera angles at the right time. Not For Broadcast has some very politically charged undertones in terms of how government is handled, and you directly influence how the government in the game, which is broadcasted on the TV most nights, is actually perceived by the audience and by the public. You can be a pawn to the government and show them in their best life, which could lead to some very negative consequences for the public, but then also lead to better ratings and better viewer numbers for you, benefiting your job but affecting the overall world and the country that you're in. It's a balancing act, and really, it's a choice put on the player of what they want to show the general public. And to be honest, this game is a tried and tested formula because it's been done before. In fact, it's been done identically because Not For Broadcast is also a flat screen game, and it's just been ported over to VR. So the game's mechanics are fundamentally very good in terms of how you handle your popularity, in terms of Channel 1, the company you work for, and the public. It's very reminiscent in themes to Papers, Please for me, really, except not as extreme in terms of what you're actually doing in the job that you're taking on. You make decisions and then you see the consequences in the wider world as the story goes on, which I think is really compelling for somebody like me who enjoys stories that are told in this way. It also does help that all the buttons and switches in your office are very fun and tactile to press, with a little bit of haptic feedback and very satisfying sound design. It reminds me a bit of playing Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted in terms of all the buttons that are around you in your office. Oh god.
And as the frequency changes, match it to the white bit by gently pushing the stick to the right.
Okay.
Get the speed right.
Oh my god, I'm fucking up. Oh no, oh no, oh no.
Frequency back by dragging left.
No, we mustn't.
Oh my god, this can, okay. I've absolutely fucked it.
Frankly, mate, you're lucky to still be on the air. Maybe get some practice in.
Oh, wow, I'm doing it. One thing that surprised me with Not For Broadcast was also its install size is about 23 gigabytes, which is very, very big for a VR game especially. And that's because all of the things that you're seeing on the screens, as you've probably noticed by now, aren't pre-rendered cutscenes, they aren't actual models or generated in-game, they're all actual videos. And while they've been compressed, there's a lot of video content in there, leading to quite the big install size. For modern gaming, 20 gigabytes is basically nothing, but I thought it was worth pointing out because a lot of people do assume that most VR games are about 5 to 15 gig, which is pretty much normal size, unless you're looking at a AAA game like Resi 8, Resi 4, or Horizon Call the Mountain. That being said, the actual video files that are in this are compressed really nicely to give that old CRTV vibe that really fit the screens that you're looking at them on. And I truly felt immersed into this job because of it. And that's the most important thing for me in terms of VR is immersion, and they've pretty much nailed it here for this. I like the compression they've got going on. It's really cool, like how that's actually compressed.
5, 4,
Okay.
3.
Anyway, that's my first impressions of Not For Broadcast VR. It's not going to be for everybody, but I do think for somebody like me, and there are plenty of other people who think this way too, I really enjoyed it. It was incredibly stressful, don't get me wrong, having to align all the buttons properly and choose the right timing, but there's a lot of people that enjoy multitasking games like that, and I enjoyed the narrative aspect probably the most, but also the gameplay in the booth was incredibly engaging and raised the difficulty over the couple days that I played. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, please do let me know in the comments below and feel free to like and subscribe. Let me know if you heard of this game before or if it's just popped up now on your radar, and let me know if you'll be interested in getting it. Anyway, thank you for watching again, and I hope to see you all in the next video.